The envelope was heavy, cream-colored, and sealed with a gold foil emblem of a private yacht slicing through sapphire waves. Inside, scripted in elegant calligraphy, the Langston Family Caribbean Cruise, a celebration of legacy and excellence. I ran my thumb over the lettering, remembering last year's insult, when my cousin Bennett forgot to include me on the guest list. This year, they wouldn't forget. I made sure of that. My name is Natalie Langston. I'm 36 years old, and this summer, I was about to give my family the kind of surprise you only see in movies. Just as I finished reviewing the final merger documents for my company, my phone lit up. My mother's name blinked on the screen. I answered. "Natalie," she said, her voice oozing that familiar, tight-lipped sweetness. "We need to talk about the cruise." I leaned back in my chair, floor to ceiling, windows wrapping around my office on the 58th floor of a Manhattan high-rise. Below, I had a perfect view of the harbor, and of Celestia, the 280-foot yacht my family thought they'd chartered for their showy reunion. "What about it, Mom?" I asked. A pause. Then the sigh. "Well, sweetheart, your Uncle Bennett and I agree this year's cruise needs to be more curated." Curated. Out on the dock, I watched as a crew in white uniforms polished brass rails and aligned deck chairs. My deck. My crew. "There'll be some very high-profile guests this time," she went on. "Your father's new associates and Bennett's investors from Europe. We have to protect the family image." Ah yes, the image. The polished, perfect Langstons with their Ivy League resumes and country club smiles. And me, the disappointment, the dropout who left the family's financial firm to waste time on a startup. That waste of time just acquired our biggest competitor in a $5 billion 0-cent deal last week. "And I don't fit the image," I said evenly, watching one of my junior yachts glide past in the harbor. "Natalie, let's not make this uncomfortable," she said. "It's just, people ask what you do, and that online thing, well, it's just not real success." I smiled at the ownership contracts sitting on my desk. My online thing had bought the very yacht they thought they rented. "I understand, Mom," I said softly. She exhaled, relieved. "I'm glad. Bennett was worried you'd try to show up anyway." "Oh," I said, standing and straightening my blazer. "Don't worry. I'll be there. And trust me, they'll know exactly who the owner is, who'd been handed everything on a silver platter while I'd built my empire brick by digital brick." "No scene," I promised, my voice smooth. "But I think I'll stop by the marina anyway, just to see you all off." "Oh, Natalie, that's not necessary," my mother began. "I insist." I cut in gently. Family is family, after all. After hanging up, I tapped my intercom. "Maria, is everything ready for tomorrow?" "Yes, Ms. Langston," my assistant replied. "The captain and crew are fully briefed. Though," she hesitated, "are you absolutely sure you want to do it like this?" I leaned back in my chair, memories flashing. Every holiday dinner where I was seated with the children, even in my 30s. The New Year's brunch where Bennett's mediocre real estate win was toasted with champagne, while my multi-million-dollar funding round wasn't even mentioned. The quiet but constant offers from relatives to help me find a real job. "Absolutely," I said. "Let's begin." The next morning, I parked a discreet black sedan at the edge of the private marina. From my window, I watched the Langstons arrive in style. Uncle Bennett's cherry red Ferrari, my father's white Bentley, my mother's pearl Range Rover. All leased, though they boasted of owning every inch. I stepped out into the crisp summer air wearing simple white linen pants and a loose cream blouse. My minimalist look stood in sharp contrast to their deck-ready couture. Gucci sandals, gold-rimmed sunglasses, logo-soaked bags. "Natalie," Bennett called out, already smirking. "Came to see what success looks like?" He gestured grandly toward the Aurelia, the gleaming 280-foot super yacht they believed was theirs for the week. My yacht, which I'd quietly purchased and renovated over the winter. "Something like that," I said, smiling. My mother air-kissed my cheek. "You really didn't need to come, darling. I know all this might be a little hard for you." I glanced at the crew, My crew, moving briskly, loading bags, aligning champagne flutes, preparing the welcome cocktails. Not at all, I replied. I just wanted to make sure everything goes perfectly. Perfect for what? My father appeared, tugging at his cufflinks. You're not still hoping to tag along, are you? Bennett barked a laugh. This cruise is for real success stories, no charity cases allowed. His group of colleagues, all fresh-faced executives from the family firm, chuckled awkwardly, eyes flicking between us. I recognized several from the Forbes 30 Under 30 issue, most of whom owed their placement to the Langston name. Now, my mother said sweetly, placing a hand on Bennett's arm. I'm sure Natalie understands. This cruise is business. There are standards to uphold. More guests arrived. VCs, hedge fund managers, legacy investors, and socialites. I recognized most of them from past negotiations, press releases, and startup conferences. What none of them recognized yet was whose name was on the deed of the yacht they were about to board. And that was about to change. Board meetings, investor summits, high-level briefings. Many of them had seen me before and never realized it, because I preferred it that way. Low profile, high control. Miss Langston, a voice called from the yacht, we're ready to begin boarding. My father's brow furrowed. That's strange. The captain should be addressing me. I arranged this charter, Uncle Bennett added confidently, months ago. Did you? I tilted my head. Are you sure about that? Before he could sputter out a reply, the captain emerged at the gangway, his pressed white uniform catching the sunlight like glass. Bennett stepped forward, hand extended. Captain, I'm Bennett Langston. We spoke on the phone about the itinerary. But the captain didn't stop. He walked right past him and came to a halt in front of me. He saluted smartly. Welcome aboard your yacht, Miss Langston. Everything is prepared to your exact specifications. Silence rippled across the dock like a wave. Even the chatter of the marina seemed to fade. Your yacht? My mother's voice barely escaped her lips. I smiled and casually pulled up a photo on my phone. Me, 6 months ago, signing the ownership documents for the Aurelia. My initials engraved into the gold pen. Did you really think you could rent one of the world's most exclusive super yachts for your little networking cruise? I asked softly. The Aurelia hasn't taken outside clients since I acquired her, along with the rest of this marina. Bennett's tanned face drained a full shade lighter. That's impossible. This yacht costs $180 million, I finished for him. Give or take another 10 for the upgrades. I held the phone out offering the proof. Would you like to see the paperwork? But this was just the prologue. They had no idea. The entire cruise itinerary they'd clung to for prestige was about to be rewritten. By me. The only sound for a long beat was the gentle lap of seawater against the hull. My father recovered first, stepping toward me with his best concerned patriarch look. Natalie, he said in a lowered voice, let's talk about this. If you've reached this level of success, perhaps it's time we considered folding your company into Langston Capital for the good of the family. I laughed quietly, remembering the way he'd once tossed my pitch deck into the trash without reading past the first page. You mean the business you called a delusion 5 years ago? I asked. The one that didn't deserve the Langston name? He waved a hand dismissively. The past is the past. We're talking about legacy now. I turned to face him fully, voice calm but unshakable. Exactly, I said, and I'm here to redefine it. If you think this shocked them, wait until you see what happened once we set sail. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the moment everything changed. Let's talk about legacy, I said, turning to face the circle of guests gathered on the dock. Some were whispering behind their sunglasses. Others stared in open shock. 6 years ago, I pitched my tech startup to Langston Capital. I glanced at my father and Uncle Bennett. They spent 20 minutes explaining why it would fail, then offered me a job as Bennett's assistant. He shifted uncomfortably, suddenly very interested in his cufflinks. What they didn't know? I'd already locked in 3 rounds of funding. By the time they wrapped up their lecture, I had $50 million, 0 cents, in venture capital lined up. My mother's signature social smile faltered. But you work out of that little office in Soho. This little office is the entire top floor of the Langston building, I said, which, incidentally, I purchased last year. You may have noticed the sudden rent hike. My father paled. The Langston building had been his pride for decades, until an anonymous buyer tripled the rent, pushing him into a far less impressive address uptown. You, he whispered. That was you. I nodded. Along with most of the commercial real estate in the district, I enjoy smart acquisitions. Bennett stepped forward, suddenly charming again. Clearly we misjudged you, but now that we know, we can work together. Think of the potential. Oh, I've been thinking, I replied. I gave a slight nod to the captain, who stepped forward and handed a thick folder to my father. What's this? He asked, flipping it open. Then stopped cold. Ownership transfer paperwork, I said. Langston Capital hasn't been doing so well lately. Risky trades, disappearing clients, the SEC sniffing around. Bennett's face drained of color. How do you know about that? He asked. I know everything, I said, including the fact that unless you receive a sizable cash infusion by month's end, the firm collapses. My voice softened. Lucky for you, I'm willing to buy it at 30 cents on the dollar. The folder slipped from my father's hands, pages scattered across the dock. My mother knelt to gather them, her diamond bracelet catching the light. But that would mean, she trailed off, that I'd own everything, I finished. The firm, the building, the Langston name and finance. All the things you valued more than me. One of Bennett's young associates stepped forward, clearing his throat. I should probably mention, I already work for Natalie, he said quietly. A lot of us do. She's been acquiring investment firms across the city. Several more guests nodded, some physically stepped away from my family and moved subtly toward me. The shift in power wasn't just visible, it was seismic. Now then, I said, turning back to face my stunned family, let's talk about this cruise. I think it's time we discussed the actual guest list. I signaled to Maria, who stepped forward with the same calm efficiency that had helped me build an empire. She handed out fresh itineraries to the crowd. You'll notice a few changes, I continued smoothly. This is no longer a social cruise. It's the kickoff event for the East Coast Tech Futures Conference. 20 of the most innovative startups in the country will be pitching their visions on board my yacht. I let that settle in before adding. Real entrepreneurs. Builders. Not trust fund heirs playing executive. Bennett's face had gone from pink to deep plum. You can't do this, he snapped. These are our guests. A man near the front cleared his throat. One of the so-called friends Bennett had invited. Actually, he said, we're here because Miss Langston invited us. Your firm's been underwhelming lately. We're exploring better options. My mother dropped onto a nearby bench, her flawless posture crumbling for the first time in decades. All this time, she whispered, you let us think that I was a failure? I finished, raising an eyebrow. Yes, I did. I wanted to see how far you'd go, how much you'd enjoy dismissing me. Think of it as a social experiment. My father's voice cracked. An experiment? I nodded. And one you failed spectacularly. I turned to the captain. Please begin boarding the actual guests. The dock crew moved into motion. My family stayed rooted. The Langstons, I added, will be taking the tender back to shore. Bennett blinked. The tender? The small boat, I said, keeping my tone light. The big one's too expensive for people who call others failures. As my invited guests, tech founders, coders, investors, real builders, began boarding, I stopped my family with one last gesture. Before you go, I have something for each of you. I handed them matching envelopes. Inside, a photograph. Them, on the dock, surrounded by wealth they didn't own, wearing expressions of stunned disbelief as the truth landed. Something to remember the day your daughter rewrote the legacy, I said with a smile. Oh, and Dad, regarding Langston Capital, you have 24 hours to accept my offer before I notify the SEC. I'm sure they'll be very interested in Marcus's creative accounting. You'd do that to your own family, my mother gasped. Family, I repeated. Was it family when you excluded me from everything? When you called me a disappointment? Silence. The funny thing is, I added, my little startup just hit a market cap of $12 billion, 0 cents. That's about 12 times what Langston Capital was worth. I glanced at Bennett. Before the embezzlement, of course. He made a choking sound. I turned to the captain. We're ready to depart. Your ride's waiting, I said, unless you'd rather swim. They turned reluctantly. My mother paused at the edge of the dock, her heels wobbling slightly on the planks. Natalie, we're sorry. We didn't know. That's the problem, I replied quietly. You never wanted to know. I watched as they boarded the tender, a small, unassuming boat, now weighed down by expensive luggage and heavier egos. They looked like mannequins from a broken window display, designer clothes, defeated stares, fading status. Then I turned and walked up the gangway of my yacht, the Aurelia, my $180 million, 0 cents Declaration of Independence. Maria met me at the top. Everything's prepared, Miss Langston, she said. Though, was the tender necessary? They could have called a car, I said, smiling faintly as the little boat bobbed in our wake. But a short ride in humility felt more fitting. The next week, every major business publication ran the headline, Tech billionaire Natalie Langston acquires family firm and rewrites the rules. The photos were everywhere. Me at the helm during the sunset cruise. Panels of young founders pitching ideas on deck. 8-figure deals inked over champagne. The SEC investigation hit just days later. Bennett faced criminal charges. My father's name lost what little credibility remained. The Langston legacy in finance crumbled. But I left them one final gift. When they returned home, each of them found a small box on their doorstep. Inside was a miniature model of the same tender boat they'd been forced to ride, down to the chipped paint and scuffed seats. Tucked inside, a handwritten note. Success isn't about the size of your boat, it's about the size of your vision. Thanks for the lesson by example. 1 year later, an invitation arrived. A family dinner. Held at a modest Italian restaurant in Midtown. No yachts, no photographers. I went, same white blouse, same linen pants, but the air in the room had changed. Marcus, now noticeably thinner in his off-the-rack shirt, approached me cautiously. Natalie? I'm sorry. I looked at the brother who had once called me a joke. Sorry you dismissed me? I asked. Or sorry you lost everything because of it? He didn't respond. I stood up, lifting my glass. Success isn't about yachts or real estate or family names. It's about grit, vision, and having the strength to believe in yourself when no one else will. Paused, letting the silence land. Remember that the next time you're tempted to call someone a failure. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed with breaking news. My incubations launches tech incubator for overlooked entrepreneurs. The photo showed the new facility, full of creators like I once was, dismissed, underestimated, ready to change the world. Sometimes the biggest win isn't just proving them wrong. It's giving others the chance to prove themselves right. And ask for that little internet thing they mocked? It just acquired its 20th company. But who's counting? Well, maybe Marcus is. From the mailroom, entry level, of course. No legacy hires allowed. If you've ever been underestimated, pushed aside, or called a failure, drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. And if you believe in quiet strength, long games, and making your own legacy, support mine. Subscribe, share, and remember, never let someone else define your worth. Rewrite the rules.